Good evening and welcome to Equilibrium Collective. I am Kerry and I am one of your co-hosts this evening. Thank you so much for joining us. This is the first of many, we hope. So we hope that you enjoy it as much as we do and that you come back for many and more videos that we shall be doing. So a little bit about myself. I am Kerry Ann. I have been involved with the paranormal for about 10 years. I have done it from many different perspectives. I have been a ghost hunter. I have been a paranormal researcher. I also am a psychology graduate, so I like to marry the whole lot together and see what I can make, which is great fun. I have taken a bit of a break from the paranormal for a little while, for about 2 years, maybe a little bit less. So I'm dipping my toe back in and hoping that you come along with me and share your ideas with me as well. I also write. I write for the Living Paranormal magazine, which we will be sharing links for at a later time during the live. But yeah, thank you for joining us, and I'd like to introduce you to my co-host Sarah.
Hi guys. So I'm Sarah. I am an eclectic witch. I've been on my spiritual path for the last 15 years. I also run Faebles, which is an online shop which you can check out lots of blogs and our shop, and we have some what they call grimoire pages that you can print off and keep, which will help as well on your journey.
So what we are hoping to achieve, what we would like to do is basically bring a platform where we can share other people's experiences. We would like to do reviews. We would like to do interviews. We would like to share our journey and things that we achieve as we go along. And also we'd like to share our opinion. And we hope that you'd like to share your opinion with us, which you're able to do today. If you go onto the YouTube channel, you can comment and we will see them and we can, respond to the things that you're sharing, if that's what you choose to do. If not, we just would like for you to just sit back, relax, enjoy. We'll be only live for an hour, but we will be back next Thursday. So we do have plans for this evening. We are waiting for Mr. David Long, who will be joining us shortly. David is a druid and he will be sharing his experiences with us, and we'll be talking about the different factors that influence psychology, that influences the paranormal, environmental and personal as well, which is something that I enjoy talking about and listening to. It's a massive part of my journey at the moment, as I'm looking at different variables that actually impact a location and an individual's investigation. It is that kind of what comes first, chicken and egg situation. Does someone influence their environment? So do we predict and manifest our responses? I'm not disputing that we don't get intellectual responses, but there is an argument that is about, or is it the environment that impacts us? Are we hypersensitive and we're experiencing variables that are happening around us and we are in our state of flight or fight, communicating that to ourselves as a paranormal entity, or something that is otherness that is not being able to explain? Because this, after all, paranormal is, the definition of that is just something that is unexplainable. So by definition, is that what we're experiencing? So for the meantime, while we wait for David, me and Sarah are going to talk a little bit about our experiences of the paranormal and the different things that we like to see when I was going to say ghost hunting. I know that's such a such a taboo word, but when we're out investigating, that's the better term. So one of my most favorite places to be is Pluckley. Pluckley, for lots of different reasons, for the historical factors, for the fact that there is lots of locations there that have been untouched. For example, you have the church that was bombed and never rebuilt, and places like that. Plus, you have all the other, highly charged experiences, paranormal experiences that happen. So, what do you think about that, Sarah?
I think there is a lot that we don't know. I think there is a lot that can affect our experiences, especially paranormal. Yeah, that there's just so much we don't know yet. And going back to ghost hunting, what do you propose is the difference between ghost hunting and paranormal research?
I personally feel the person that's doing the ghost hunting or the research, the perspectives that they're coming from will be completely different. So for a ghost hunter, they are looking for a ghost. It could be that they're going to that location to debunk, or it could be that they're going to get evidence of life after life. Whatever the narrative, irrespective of that, they are looking for a ghost. Paranormal research, there's a difference in it simply because you are looking for other things outside of the haunt itself. You're looking at the other variables that surround it. What could impact that? So it's a much more of a broader perspective. So I do feel like that is completely down to the person that is going. I will say that I've considered myself as a ghost hunter many a times, but I do feel like I'm at a stage now where I would consider myself more as a paranormal researcher, just because I'm more interested about not so much the field work, although that's a massive part. It's not so much about going out and collecting evidence. It's in terms of intellectual responses and stone tape theory and ghost loops and stuff like that. That they're all amazing to go and to experience, but I am more interested in what is going on with that person whilst they're out in the field, whilst they're collecting their evidence. So in my opinion, that's the difference. But what are your thoughts on that?
So, would you agree with the perception that maybe a ghost hunter could be more for the thrill, more for the curiosity, to more for the experience, whereas a paranormal researcher would be looking, as you said, into all those different factors because there's so many different layers, and trying to peel back each of those layers to find out the cause and effect of each factor.
That's my opinion. That's exactly it. I feel like the ghost hunter is looking for their fight or flight. They're looking for that adrenaline rush. And like I said, I am that person. I have been that person. And I can't say that it's never going to be a time where I think to myself, I just want to go out with my friends and go look for ghosts. I think there's always going to
Yeah,
be that. So I'm not going to say that I'm never going to do that again. But I feel, yes, paranormal research is so much deeper. There is a college in Kensington, SPR, the Society of Physical Research, and some of the journals that they put out, the information, they're the kind of things that I feel paranormal research, and not just from that body, but the likes of those. A paranormal researcher is more likely to seek that type of information than I feel like they would be to actually go out on the hunt. But that doesn't take away from the experience. And I'm not saying a paranormal researcher would not go out field like researching in the field either. But yeah, I think the thing is, I think those that have been in the field for a long time, I feel that I'm talking generically, so it's not everyone. It's a very broad statement I'm making, so I know it's not everyone, but I feel like sometimes when they get called a ghost hunter, they're a little bit offended because they feel like there's so much
yeah.
more into it than just looking for ghosts. But it's still a term that is used and people still identify as that as well. So yeah, it's just I feel like there's two types of investigations, and I love both, but I do find that I get more satisfaction from paranormal research. Yeah.
So, like
So
the experiments and
yeah.
trying new things and thinking
Yes.
out the box.
I love all that kind of stuff. If there's something new, I want to try it. And I love working with energy and I like working with things that are different. And I love equipment, but I am not the most tech savvy. I'm not going to lie. This is something that I'm hoping that I can develop on this particular journey, that I'll be able to become more informative with how technology I can use that to my advantage when trying to gather evidence. But if give me a dowsing rod. I want dowsing rods. I want pendulums. I want singing bowls, I want crystals, but at the same time, I know that it's not a singular thing. You know, you need to have others. Like you said, it's multifaceted. There's so many different layers to it. But I think it's important that if you're going to look at one, you should at least be open to looking at the other, even if it's just for you to go, actually, I don't feel like it has any scientific relevance to what I'm seeking personally. But yeah, definitely you should have a go. So is there anything in particular that you think you would like to try on an investigation that isn't in the normal ghost hunting kit or research kit?
So much, so much. So I regularly use a singing bowl for meditation.
Okay.
And it said that different frequencies correspond to different chakras within the energy system.
Yeah.
It can also affect your aura because of the sound frequencies. So by raising vibrations, I would absolutely love to be able to find out if that could cause an effect on a paranormal investigation. Would that heighten the paranormal experience? Would you get more activity? Would you get maybe something more positive come through? Would you get something more negative come through? This is all the things that I'd love to find out just with one tool that wouldn't necessarily be in their little ghost busting kit.
Yeah, and I would also be interested if that frequency can affect, can amplify or affect someone's aura. What changes does that have on someone in an investigation? Does it create? Because there is research currently in the field that look at sound frequencies in terms of investigations and as variables as people that influencers. So there is research in this, but that's a dimension I've not looked at. So that would be quite interesting. So maybe that's something we should do once we can.
Yes.
When we're home free, we should try and we'll do our own little investigation and see if we can find whether it does affect. That'd be really interesting.
It would, wouldn't it? And also
Yeah.
like crystals as well, because
Yeah.
crystals are used for therapies.
Yeah.
So different crystals or gemstones they correspond to different emotions and different frequencies. So it would be interesting to find out if one crystal could affect the experience as well, but also the perception of maybe the person holding and working with that crystal as well.
Yeah, I mean, I have with crystals and within the paranormal. I have been fortunate to work with a crystal lady when we was in a previous team, and she would use crystals at points and stuff like that. And we had some really great experiences. In one particular one, we was in a pub, and there was a crystal, and we were talking about this crystal, and then through the spirit box, we heard "touch it." So it was interesting that we got what we considered an intellectual response to a situation that was actually happening at that time. So even if it's just the curiosity that is created by it, it's interesting to see what kind of impact the crystals can have on investigations. And I've been quite fortunate to see it in person. So it is quite a good approach to take. But one thing that I would love to do, and it is on my paranormal, I don't want to say bucket list because that's quite negative, but my to-do list is I would love to do an investigation that is purely Harry Price kit. I love Hi Tara. Yes, I love Harry Price. He's very eccentric, and some of his research projects was amazing. And if you actually look at the findings and look at what he did, even now we owe a lot to him as researchers. But there is case studies that are, for example, I don't know too much, but I know enough to be able to discuss it. Maybe someone that listening might be able to help. But there's two particular cases of Harry Price. Now, Harry Price was a fantastic paranormal researcher. He was a parapsychologist, and he was one of the first. This was around the same time as Helen Duncan Smith, who was someone who was a trance medium that would project ectoplasm and do trance demonstrations, like when it was illegal. So she was basically asked to, under research, in the research environment, so a sterile environment, to produce ectoplasm. She was set up with Harry Price. Harry Price started it all, made sure he sealed all the windows and the doors, and everything was fine. And she managed to contaminate the experiment by leaving the room and just going out into the streets. So the findings were neither here or there. What he was able to do, though, was the cheesecloth. The ectoplasm that they did find was cheesecloth. But he basically put in place the fundamentals of research in terms of kit that we use today. And a lot of the trigger experiments and stuff like that, they're all the kind of things that we owe to Harry Price. But there's two particular he kind of went to go and investigate two particular recorded, I wouldn't say hauntings, but activity. And one of them was a mongoose. There was reports that there was a talking mongoose. So he went and travelled to this location. I think it was Germany, I might be wrong, but he went to travel to this place to look at this mongoose. And he knocked at the door, and the person said, "Oh no, sorry, the mongoose has just gone into town for a bit. You're gonna have to get him when he comes back." So he tried to go to town to look for this mongoose. When he come back, the mongoose was home at this point, and they said, "Yep, you can talk to the mongoose, but you have to do it in the barn behind with a brick wall between you." And he actually reported that there was the talking mongoose. So it does kind of put into perspective some of the findings that he did kind of come across, as well as the the case of Rosalind, which was meant to be a physical manifestation of a spirit girl, and he reported that he was able to take her pulse. So, he is a bit of an eccentric one, but nevertheless, we do owe a lot to him because of the things that he did bring to the paranormal research party. So there's a reason why I was going on. Oh yes, when I talk about kit, I would love to do a investigation with just pure, Harry Price kit, without the talking mongoose and without the ghost of Rosalind that he was able to take a pulse with, which I can't even fathom. He actually put that in his notes. He was able to take her pulse. That's the bit that stuck with me the most. I went to a lecture, and it stuck with me. Yeah, that's when I thought to myself, "Oh, maybe something's not quite right here." But yeah. So that's something I'd like to do. So, what about you, Sarah? Is there anything that you'd like, that you've seen? Is there any kit that you've seen that you'd like to try?
I'd like to try different things that aren't usually used, like the singing bowls to raise vibrations, like the crystal grids, and different types of incense are said to emit different energetic frequencies as well. So just investigating and trying out those things. And Luke Davis's
I was just about to say,
as well.
yeah,
of course, Luke.
Luke's little cheeky little promo there. Yeah, Luke's box. So tell me about Luke's box. Do you know?
I don't, not really. I've seen it. He's showed me one that he built, and it looked amazing. I wouldn't have the patience to tinker with things like that. But Luke, you'll have to come on and tell us all about it.
Yeah, maybe we'll be able to review it for you also on an investigation. Okay, right. It's an FM suite radio housed in an old 1950s box. I've seen this. Actually, it's really nice. It's very nostalgic. Yeah. So that would fit straight in, although it wouldn't, but it would fit into the Harry Price era for me. So we were talking previously about the psychological aspects and the impacts that it has on paranormal. I find this something quite this duality between the two. I find them sometimes quite hard to balance, because one will always counteract the other. Now, I am a believer in spirit. I believe that spirit is real. I believe that you can gain manifestations, be able to, get evidence and proof of, which, is what I seek when I do investigate. However, I try not to be too biased, because the psychologist in me is giving me lots of reasons why a person would experience these: confirmation bias, survivability bias, lots of things going on that will give reasons to why someone's experiencing the way they do. One thing in particular that I've spoken about recently is the impact of attitude change, and how the change of an attitude one person, or attitude in one person, can change that of others. So for example, if you're in a location and someone has said, oh, this place is really negative, I feel really negative in here, I feel really sick, I feel a bit dizzy, I'm getting a fear of, like, a sense of fear here, someone panicked, someone lost their life very tragically here. Now straight away I can feel the energy of myself change. So with these kind of narratives going on, do you feel like that could change a location? Do you think that could change the evidence that you get, or impact it?
Yeah, so Luke's just actually made a really good point. Matt Payne, he's the founder of Paranormal Shadows Investigation. Now he creates apps, and he specifically made an app called the Solomon app, which is made to be scary, which I think is the perfect way to explore that.
That, yes, I agree. I was thinking, caught me on my toes there. I'm thinking, if
Sorry.
yes, that you could, if you was to do you know, a situation where two groups was to be exposed to it, and one be told that, there's something scary in here already, and then use the equipment, and then someone who doesn't actually, this is quite a quiet location, we don't really get much evidence here, so if we do, we're quite fortunate, and experience the box as well, and see actually the true impact that that kind of variable would have in the environment, and the investigator themselves. I would be quite interested in being involved with that, if there's something. Yeah. I'm trying to push my way in. Someone take me. I want to come. Yeah, so that'd be really, really interesting. See, that's the kind of things that I find I enjoy. I enjoy, because I like to see the difference in not just investigators, but people that come along. People that come along for the first time, because sometimes you get people that go there that basically want to prove that there's nothing there, and it's, there's nothing scary going on. And then you've got the ones that are, genuinely crapping themselves, because they're in the anticipation that something's going to happen, and they're going to be touched, and someone's going to be thrown across the room, and already they're in that state of flight or fight response. So I like to, yeah, it's nice to see. I've been fortunate to go around with those two types of people, and even me, I've noticed the change of, not just the change of the group, but just by that one person, but also the change of activity in the same room with those two different groups separately. It's quite interesting. But yeah, so my other thing that I really like to do is find locations that have some kind of history that's quite, not raw, but that there would be some kind of activity. Not that I want to pre-assume, or that it's going to be there, but I do like going to those type of places. Now, one particular place for me that I really love is Leigh-on-Sea in Essex. I don't know if anyone's near Leigh-on-Sea in Essex or have heard about it, but they actually have in Leigh-on-Sea like a docking area called Old Leigh-on-Sea, and it's literally a place that's been kept back in time. The cobbled roads, all up and down and even. The pubs are really old. The houses are literally the length of one room. They're tiny little sea houses, and there's a story about a sea witch that lived there, Sarah Moore. She's amazing. Honestly, she is amazing. So she was a lady that went through a lot of trauma in her life. She had a number of husbands that all died before her. She had a number of children that had passed away as well. She reached a really old age. So she obviously at that time, this is years and years and years and years ago, during the witch hunts, she had to fend for herself. So the fact that she was a spinster who was working for herself as well, what she did was she would ask sailors to cross her palm with silver for a fair trade. That's how she used to do, and to do washing. She used to do washing and stuff. So she, not the sailors washing, that's just something else she did on the side. She had a little sideline. So yeah, so this is what she did. And the story is two different stories. One is that a sailor heard about her and refused to pay the silver. So as he left Leon, he ended up, the whole ship was shipwrecked in a storm that come from nowhere. He managed to get back to shore. Before he left the boat, he got an axe and hit the stern. So when he got back to shore, he found Sarah Moore with a gash in the back of her head. That was the one. And the second is that she was dunked in a dunking pool, which is still there. The dunking pool is still there. It's just been covered over with mosaic. So and this was genuinely used. There was 3 witches that were dunked in the dunking pool that were killed, or women that were alleged to be witches during this time. So the thing is, there was an actual Sarah Moore that lived there at that time. There's a pub that's called the Sarah Moore in Leon, and she had a bit of a bad history. They said that she murdered children. Children tried to get into her house. They knocked a lamp on themselves, the oil lamps. They set themselves on fire. So she chased them out, and she was trying to put them out. But the locals were saying that she was trying to catch them in her bags. And if you look back in the history, there was a Sarah Moore. She is buried in the church not too far away. There is 3 children that died all at the same time, and it says by fire. So there's lots of history that kind of, joins. The reason why I'm going on about this so much is because she was really demonized. But just down the road in Hadley, there was a cunning man who lived at the same time called James Murrell. Now, this man, I don't know if Andy Mercer, who is the lovely man who made our jingle, he studied James Murrell and would tell me a lot about him. But it was what I found very difficult. It was a very patriarchy time, sorry. She was a witch. She was someone to be feared. She was the one that was going to hurt everyone. Where James Murrell was a cunning man, he was a man of wisdom. He was the one that people would go to. So that's the kind of things that I really like in locations, is these kind of stories that kind of add to it all. It could be argued that it creates a bias and there's an expectation for evidence, but we won't talk about that because I like it.
Well, what I was going to ask you, do you think it makes a difference knowing the history of a place before doing an investigation than it would if you didn't?
Yes. And I think other researchers will tell you that as well. But when you have a team, it's always good to have allocated roles, and it's always good to have a historian, so to speak, the Googler. It's always good to have one of those. They're the ones that tend to do the research, and you'll always find that they're the ones that kind of they might not do as much on the investigations. They might do, but they might not do as much because they don't want to interfere with the findings. And then if there's things that come up at the end and everyone has a discussion, we always end up in McDonald's at 3 a.m. It's the best thing in the world. I miss that the most. But while we're there, we would talk about things that we got and go through things, and then that person would go, oh yeah, that makes sense because this happened there and this happened there. So we always we'd never be told beforehand, we'd always be told after, because validation is amazing, and if it can be validated, it's even better. So yeah, the best one was with Phil War. I'm not sure if he's here, but with Phil War, we went to Hockley Woods. That is a messed up place. genuinely scared me. Genuinely, I'm not even gonna. You go into like a little bit of an opening, and there's like an archway of trees that go down for miles with a little bit of an open at the end, and it's like you look like you genuinely feel like you're walking to your death. I'm not gonna lie, but when we went there, he picked up an aeroplane. And he kept saying, I'm getting this aeroplane. I don't know what it is. And then at the end, the researcher was like, yeah, a plane had crashed there not so long, like years ago, sorry. A plane had crashed there. So that kind of stuff is always, it's always good. Phil was our medium. So yeah, but I've been talking loads. So if there's any questions or anything that anyone wants to talk, or even their perspective that you feel might be relevant to the things that we're talking about, please put them in the chat. Yeah, join in as much as you want to. Okay, I want to know Luke's favourite type of location. Luke asks, most people will tell you my favourite location. So Luke, what is your favourite location?
Go for it, Luke. No pressure.
quick type as well. While we're waiting for Luke, what would be your ideal location?
Probably a small village, because I don't know why, but I feel like a small village has possibly got darker secrets than, say, a big town.
Well, like Leon C.
Yeah, like, yeah.
Yeah, just like come on over. Yeah, we'll go over there. Yeah. See, I agree. I do. Oh, he wants to know if you know first.
No.
Okay. Well, a location with no one about and lots of history. Yes, I agree. I agree as well. It's always good. My worst experience ever was we went to a something Boy Woods. But we went there and there was a tent. A man in the tent obviously was sleeping there overnight. And so there's us walking through the woods with spirit boxes and going, hello, is anyone there? Would anyone like to talk to us? Step forward, please. Give us your name. And then this man's like, do you mind?
Sorry, mate.
Yep, no. It's all right, we're moving on. And then shortly after that, I got attacked by a badger. I swear to God, it come at me from nowhere.
They're evil, they are. I used to work with those.
Oh, I did fear for my life. Oh, anywhere World War II. So have you been to the fort? What's the Fort Redoubt? Fort Redoubt? Yeah, Fort Redoubt. So a little bit for those that
I remember, actually. Sorry, butting in.
Welcome.
PSI actually done a bunker, but I can't remember where it was. So if one of you guys want to like give us a shout,
we got the secret nuclear bunker. Yeah, the secret nuclear bunker that's not so secret anymore. That I've never done that. I would love to.
Don't know.
Yeah. But for anyone that's watching or are still watching at this point, this is a very generic kind of podcast. It's our first one, and we kind of wanted to get everyone a little bit used to who we are and what we're about. And going forward, we're hoping to review products. Luke, if you want to send anything our way, we'll do it. And we're interviewing as well. We're hoping to get some diverse and different conversations. It's not just paranormal we're going to be covering. We're going to cover spirituality, witchcraft, druidism, shaman, anything, weird locations, mysteries, anything that we think that would be good for you guys, and also discuss, which is what we're doing today, just kind of genuinely discussing things that we've experienced. So yeah, it's all self at the moment, but we hope that you'll enjoy and get involved with us as well going forward. And if you do want to be interviewed and you have an interesting topic, or you're passionate about a location or an approach, then please get in touch, because we'd love to talk to you as well about that.
Yeah, so Luke say best person for products would be Shelley. Absolutely, and I've been on her ear. Please come and do an interview with us, you and Matt. Tell us about your apps and all your gadgets. So fingers crossed.
Yeah, show us the way of your people.
I know they're very, very busy at the moment because they've got lots of cool stuff coming up, but I'm not saying anything about that right now.
Insiders information, but yeah,
I
definitely.
have been silenced.
Yeah, no, I would love to learn more about apps. It's something that I lack, and it's something that I would love to know more about. I have the basic equipment, but that's about as far as it goes. So yeah, we want to know more, especially as well. I mean, I was investigating at a time where apps were first coming onto the scene, with the Echo Vox, and there was two main ones. There were probably more, but there was only two that I was really aware of. And it was quite controversial at the time because they were saying about how using equipment via your phone could cause interference and stuff with different bits and pieces. But I kind of am aware that things are different and that there's more information about this now. So it's definitely something I would love to discuss and get involved. So Nature's Vikings.
It's
Them.
Drew. Hi,
Oh,
Drew.
hiya. So Wales, yes, I would love. There is some amazing places in Wales, and it's got so much history there, and I have a real good I have a little bit of a Celtic link there, so I definitely feel like it's like coming home to my people. But I would love, yeah, Wales. I've never been. Scotland as well is somewhere that I would love to go. There's loads of castles there, isn't there? And Warwickshire and stuff like that. Some fantastic places. I've just been sticking to my little local area of Essex, but there's some fantastic, some good places here. So, but yeah, that would be amazing.
Oh, we have
Yeah.
Chislehurst Caves nearby as well. Have you heard of those?
Never.
Oh
This
my
is the
God.
first time. I was
They,
today
they
old.
they do tours and stuff, and it's so creepy. It's like so dark, and it's cold, and it's damp, but it's amazing in there. And you can feel the energy, and they tell you all these
Yeah.
stories. It's like, oh, I don't know if I want to be here now. So
That's
I think that could be
amazing.
quite an amazing place to go and do an
Yeah.
investigation as well.
That yeah, there is somewhere that's quite close by. I don't think a lot of people know about it, and I was told by another investigator about it. And it's an agricultural barn, and it literally has everything in there. It's in Upminster. It's a great little location, and it's something like they charge something like £10 per person or something like that. So for a small team, they have no limits as well, really. So for a small team that just want to be able to get out there and do something and, have a go of the equipment and get their head around everything, that's a good place as well. So yeah. So actually, Jade Lacey says my house is a haunted location, and that's actually a really good topic I'd love to talk about. So people's houses. How do you feel about investigators or ghost hunters or investigators actually going into an investigation in the house somewhere that someone lives in?
It's an interesting one because then it comes back to the environmental factors. What energy has the sort of recorded from the family or families that have lived in that house? How does that affect that? So that's quite an interesting one for
Yeah.
me.
See, for myself, when I think about houses, the first thing I feel anyone should do is I feel that sitting down with the resident is the most important thing to do. Getting an idea of what's happening, what's going on, and is there anything going on in their life? Because if you look at any kind of famous hauntings, they've always, and I'm being quite broad, so I'm not trying to offend anyone when I say this. But if you look at like Enfield Haunting, if you look at the one, the one that's Don't Turn the Lights Out, the Northern House, East Drive, 30 East Drive. If you look at those type of locations, they're always a new change happening. It's usually a adolescent female, sometimes, and as well, you look at the other ones, you have like a parent that's had to leave or has moved out, or there's been a broke up in a relationship. There's always some kind of massive trauma that's going on. So I feel like that's something that you have to take in consideration when you're looking at investigations, is to look at what is happening, what has happened around that family. The only issue that I have, and it might not be a popular comment that I'm about to make. So, you know, if you don't agree, it's absolutely fine. But the one thing I think to myself is that if you go into someone's house and do an investigation, okay, you get evidence to say that there is something in there. What about those that don't do anything about it afterwards? Obviously, if someone says my house is haunted, could you come and have a look? You get evidence to say, all right, yeah, we think possibly based on this, it is. Then what? Does the paranormal researchers or the ghostbusters or hunters, do they have a type of personal responsibility to then try and rectify that or move the spirit on? Or do you feel like the spirit should even be moved on if it's you know, belongs in the house and lived in that house for so long? What do you feel about that?
I think it should. It's difficult because it depends on how it's affecting the family. First and foremost, I think the energy of the people should be sort of looked into. What issues are they dealing with? Where are they emitting any negative energy that could be instigating the activity? Then I think they should look into the actual entities or energies as such, find out what that's about. But I kind of feel like if it is just a spirit of the land, for example, let it be. If it's not affecting the family, if it's not destroying things, live in harmony, be happy together, be you know,
Yeah.
flatmates. But obviously there is the whole poltergeist thing or negative energies that may possibly conflict with the living. In that case, I think something would have to be done to either remove or neutralize the energy in that property or that land.
Yeah, sorry, I was reading the comments.
That's fine.
I was reading the comments, sorry.
So yes, there's again lots of layers to consider.
Yes. I do feel that a person would have personal responsibility if you are going into a location to investigate. Then I feel that if there is something there, you should be in a position to try and move on something if it's having a negative effect. At the same time, I feel like if you're not in that position to do it, then you shouldn't be investigating into private properties. I really don't, because that is someone's home liveliness, and I do have heard that people have had investigators go in and it's just made it a whole lot worse, and then they're left with this heightened energy because there's been interaction and communication. Energy is built for that purposely, so what happens after that? It's not just going to disappear. But yeah, so if Jade Lacey, how can you tell if it's someone's house, if it's a house or yourself? I personally feel that if the location, and this is going on quite famous haunts as well, if the location hasn't had no experiences previously, you move out of the house and there's no experiences after, then something has gone on in that environment to amplify that, and it might just be the two situations marrying and then creating it. That's what it could be. However, if you've moved from property to property to property and you've had the same things and the same things happening everywhere you go, then there is a slight chance that energy is around you. I don't agree with the word attachment. I find that it has a very negative inclination, yeah, it's kind of negative, even though it could be a negative spirit. Calling it an attachment, I feel, gives it that extra power. But then I also believe that if you believe you are haunted, then you can actually create that as well. I don't know if anyone's familiar with the Phillips experiment, for example, where they actually was able to manifest the spirit that wasn't real, and they were able to get intellectual communication from this spirit Philip. It took about a year for them to do. There's so much more in it than what I've just said, but yeah. So if I feel like I think you yourself will know that answer. However, if you don't, then I would say maybe speaking to someone and having a bit of guidance, Paranormal Shadows might be a great group to get in touch with if you want to discuss that more, if I haven't covered it. But yeah, that's true. We don't know the power of our own minds. So Eric really says, what about houses where someone does dark santria? I'm going to pronounce it wrong. I haven't got the accent. And the dark spirit stays after the person dies. Would it follow the family or stay in the house? So, Sarah, have you got? I've only researched this recently, so I don't know too much about it. But do you?
What was the question again? Sorry.
You're going to make me try and pronounce the word that I can't pronounce now. What about houses where someone does dark santria and the dark spirit stays after the person dies? Would it follow the family or stay in the house? So I would say that this is likened to, but not the same as. From what I got, it's from it's African origins, and it kind of mixes Catholic religion with traditional, I don't want to say voodoo or hoodoo because I don't think it's like that, but it's traditional kind of ways of, like, yeah, a little bit like voodoo, I think. So it's a kind of mix of the two together. But if you take that away from it, if someone does dark work, does the energy that's been manifested through that, do you think that continues after the person passes away, or do you think it will what's your opinion on this?
I think that that's entirely dependent upon the practitioner's intentions. Did they intend for it to remain forever and indefinitely, or did they intend for the darkness, as it were, to disappear when they go? Does that make sense?
Yeah, so the only kind of likeness I can do is negative spell work or incantations or energy work, and again, it's always set with an intention, and that intention and what happens after that purely relies on the intention of the person that sets it. However, I do feel like it's a bit of a journey, and that if you do feel like that there is a residue left that is affecting, that is something that maybe you can discuss with someone that's more familiar with the path, with the faith path as well. I hope that kind of helps, but I'm definitely not knowledgeable enough to be able to pass comment on it.
David's here.
Hi, David.
I'm late, but I'm here.
It's fine. Before we introduce David properly, Luke Davis mentions Ouija boards and my views on them. I believe that they're a tool of communication. I believe it's completely dependent on the person that is being the conduit, or, well, actually the Ouija board's conduit, but the person that is in charge of that board. And again, there is a level of personal responsibility if you're going to use or be a part of a kind of enjoy that kind of way of working, then you definitely have to make sure you know everything you can about it, and your own ability to be able to not control, but be a gate opener, door opener. I do believe that you can communicate spirit through them, though, and I believe that if you have a negative approach, or if you're dealing with being negative with the way you're working, like attracts like, and you're going to attract that. So yeah, so David is our druid that's going to be joining us this evening. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself, David?
Oh gosh, what do you want to know?
So, well, I don't know anything about druidism, so, and I'm not even sure if that's correct terminology to use. So, yeah, correct me where I'm.
Druid is fine. Druid works, actually. Yeah, so I practice druidism. I've been a druid for pushing 7 years now, at least the past 6. So, yeah, it's been an interesting life journey, spiritual journey process, and it makes you stop and think and reevaluate a lot of what you've done in life and where you're going and what you are doing.
So to expand on that, what brought you to the path of druidry? Did I say that right?
Yeah. Okay. So that one was a complete accident. I just kind of fell into it. I had some things happen and ended up getting invited out to a circle here in my area, and I didn't even know there were other pagans here. And so I accepted the invite, and then met a druid up there, and we became friends. And then she became my high priestess. So just kind of expanded from there.
It's funny how the universe works, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So we have been discussing the environmental and psychological factors that can influence paranormal activity. What are your views on that, David?
Oh, I don't know what all you guys have touched on. So as far as environmental factors, but how did you phrase it? Environmental and what factors?
Psychological.
Okay. So yeah, as far as environmental factors, fill me in on what all you guys touched on so far.
Everything and anything, really.
So, electronics, the house.
No, we haven't touched on electronics. Do that
Oh.
one.
Okay, so here's an interesting one. I was at work last night. I was doing a 12-hour night shift, so 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. And my client was a little restless, and so I turned off all the lights. As I got everything turned off, I went to go sit down and just kind of chill on my phone for a minute, and I heard something click in the kitchen. And I got up to go investigate, and I was like, surely that's the fish tank or something in there. Something settling, maybe the wind pushed the door. But no, so I got up, I went in there, and I was listening for a minute, and then I heard that click again, and then the light on the washer started blinking. And I was like, huh, that's interesting. So I started thinking about it. I was like, has it ever done this before? Not while I was here. So I messaged some other workers. I was like, has the washer ever just randomly kicked on? The lid's open. It has a lock on it. One worker said that yes, she would get an uneasy feeling, and then the washer would click on, and it would start flashing that way. And I'm like, okay, everyone else says no. So I have to rule out, before I say it's anything paranormal or anything like that, I have to rule out, is it faulty wiring? Is it a bad electronic board, a motherboard in the programming in the washer or whatever? But that was interesting.
So this could touch on like EMF. Is it EMF? Readings and stuff?
I guess it could. Because electricity, if I remember correctly, produces electromagnetic fields. So,
Kerry?
So
it's kind of what we. Sorry.
Oh, I was just gonna say, as far as like electronics and things like that, those definitely can mess with any types of tools or devices that are used to register and measure the paranormal activities and things.
Okay. So it's kind of a little bit what we were speaking about, the sound frequency, and the impact that could have on a individual or the location itself. So yeah, it's kind of like, so it brings in a new dimension to what we spoke about earlier, because we were talking about using pieces of equipment like sound bowls at locations to try and amplify energy to be able to help manifest intellectual or otherwise responses. So it's kind of really, what do you feel about that, about using sound bowls?
So I like them. I generally just quite enjoy the sound. I think they're calming and soothing. But it's funny that you mentioned that, because I actually was just reading a study the other day about subsonic frequencies, and they use those in horror movies. So a lot of horror movies, my dog is all over me. A lot of horror movies, you kind of notice that when you're watching a horror movie, you're in the theater, or a suspense or a thriller or whatever, you kind of start to get this uneasy feeling, and something's going to happen.
Yeah.
But nothing's happened yet, right? Yeah. And then all of a sudden there's this big jump scare, and you're like, oh, I knew it was coming. Why did I jump? So what they do a lot is they use subsonic frequencies in the soundtracks and the films, and so they use like 18 to 25 hertz, it's a really low rumble. and it's almost inaudible to the human ear. But it actually vibrates through your body, and your organs feel that vibration, and it makes you feel uneasy and uncomfortable because it's the same frequency that it's output during an earthquake or a volcanic eruption, some type of natural event. And so in my personal opinion, through thousands and thousands of years of evolution, our bodies have learned to tune into those things and pick up on that. And that's kind of like that foreshadow warning of something is happening, something's going to happen.
Okay.
So, I mean, I've got a surround sound system in my house with like this huge subwoofer, and it definitely plays those.
Yeah, so I've done a little bit of, well, I'm lying. I didn't know about it until I watched a horror film. And this horror film, I don't really watch many horror films. They genuinely put me in bad places. I hate it. I have to watch through a pillar. But I watched one that was doing research on sound frequencies, and this lady was going actually to debunk a haunted, an alleged haunted, and it was underground in a sealed off underground train tunnel. Yeah, and she was recording the different frequencies and how that affected her body. So that's really what I kind of went off and done my research on, and found that the frequencies does make a difference, and it impacts you in different ways on different levels as well. So I really am excited to take that singing bowl onto an investigation with me.
Yeah.
We have some questions. So Eric asks, is druid in the same category as monk, or is that a title towards a different religion?
So monks are more along the lines of like Christian. My dog's hitting my keyboard. I don't know if you can still see me because I don't know what he did.
Yeah, we can see you.
Okay. So monks are more along the lines of Christian, from my understanding. And well, I mean, I guess there's Buddhist monks and so on and so forth. But no, druids, we don't really have monks. We have priests. So yeah, and there's obviously there's a clergy. I'm actually a member of the clergy, and we go through different titles as we go through our training and stuff like that. So.
And I know that you mentioned about high priestess as well. So that's quite similar to paganism.
Yeah.
Obviously have high priestess as well. So there's crossovers with paganism and druidism?
Yeah. Yes. So I call her a high priestess. She's actually just considered a priest, or a druid. So the title of druid actually goes to the priests, and you could be priest or priestess, and I'm just used to the pagan community, so I'm high priestess.
Right. Okay.
So, but yeah, we do rituals. We observe a lot of the same holidays that pagans do, and depending on, so there's different types of druids. I don't really know how to categorize that. Kind of like there's different types of Christianity. So you have like your Baptist and Pentecostal and so on. You have your the Northern tradition druids, Southern traditions, and so on and so forth. Ours are my tradition is Nordic.
Right. Okay.
So we do blots. So we'll have like alpha blot and things like that. But they're very similar to the rest of the pagan community. It's all the same holidays.
Okay. So moving a little bit away from that topic, we have another question. Nature's Viking, Drew?
Drew, yeah.
Okay, so Drew asks, how should I address being touched by something I cannot see and activity around the house? So this was a conversation we was having previously to David joining us, and we were talking about the personal responsibilities an investigator has when investigating a location that is a private residence and that person has continued to live there. So I'll briefly answer and then I'll see what you guys' opinions are. Being touched by something you cannot see. I think that I've become desensitized by this, and so when someone, obviously I'd probably feel a bit uncomfortable with something touching me. I don't know to what extent. Like if I get like a little brush against my arm, I think my arm's twitched. Or if I stump my hair, I think, it's a gust, the wind. I always rationalize it because it's been ingrained into me now, to not just go, oh my God, it's a ghost. But what about you guys?
I personally think I've had experiences with spirit, and I've found myself, if I've outwardly said to whoever or whatever it was that has touched me or has made a sound, if I outwardly express that I don't want that behaviour in my home, then they tend to respect that. So I do think it's about boundaries. Yeah, David, what do you think?
Yeah, I do. Again, I have a more scientific mind, so I
Go
try
for it.
everything I can to debunk whatever it is before I go to the paranormal. But definitely, so I do. I ask outwardly. I'm like, you look, you need to have respect for me. I have respect for you. If you don't want to move on, whatever, just you live over there. I live over here. If they continue to mess with me, I go ahead and I ground myself, and then I shield, and I just kind of push them back.
Okay, Drew, I don't think that's okay. I think that is something you need to express to the surrounding energies. You need, as David touched on, you do need to ground yourself, and you do need to shield yourself, and say, I don't like this. I don't like what you're doing, and I don't welcome it. Please stop.
Sometimes it's a little bit deeper than that as well. Sometimes you have activity that goes beyond you just reclaiming back your it's ownership, reclaiming ownership of your home and how that energy come into your home in the first place. I have brought I have thought that I've brought something home with me once, and I had like a little blessing done. Whether I had or not, I don't know, but I had a little blessing done. So sometimes it's important to, if it's beyond you, to reach outside and maybe get a little bit of help. But at the same time, it's important to go through your own mental processes and kind of what's happening, and am I being hyper vigilant, like when David spoke earlier and said that when we watch films, we are, something sets us off into a fight or flight response, and we instantly, the blood runs from our fingers to our muscles, we're ready to run, hyper vigilant, but then it could just be that you were just chilling in your house and something just pitched up. So my natural reaction would always say, oh, my muscle twitched, but I don't know to the extent of how you're being affected. So yeah, if you're getting to a point and you've reclaimed your space and you've set your boundaries and you've kind of said, no, that's not okay, and it's still happening, then maybe if it is an issue, then look outside of that. We have Andy as well, and Andy has said that whenever he's done dwellings in the past, he has insisted no kids be there. Simple reason is I wouldn't want to traumatize the children. And yes, sorry, I've got the wrong teeth today. But I do agree, yeah. And again, it's about personal responsibility and the impact you have on that situation. I have medium friends and people that give readings, and it's always important. They say, and the reason why I'm giving that example is they always say it's important that when someone leaves a reading, they're felt uplifted and re-energized. That's always a most fundamental part of seeking that kind of support. So if they're coming away from a reading scared, you haven't done your job. So I apply the same principle to paranormal research. If you're going to a location and you're amplifying that fear, then you're not doing your job properly. If you're doing it for that reason, if you're just there to go and look for ghosts, don't do public locations at all. Scratch them off your list. So yeah. Jade, Drew said Jade had mentioned something previously. No, sorry. So yeah, so that's kind of covers us for house locations and stuff like that. Do you incorporate? Have you been on an investigation before, David?
I've done my own little things with friends. We have a lot of little old, well, for America, old cemeteries from like the 16, 17, 1800s. And I enjoy going there. I actually have one across my town, probably about 5 minutes away, that I enjoy going to. It has grave markers that go back to about the mid to late 1800s, and I'm always drawn to this one specific spot. Doesn't have anything in it. It looks like an old hollowed out mausoleum type deal, and it's really tiny. But everybody that goes past it says they feel like something's watching them. The closer they get, the tighter their chest gets. They don't like it. It has a lot of negative energy. I've always been drawn to it. I go over there and chill by it, and I'm just like, it could be a misinterpretation of like if there are spirits over here, and a lot of times when kids go, I want to say kids, so when younger people go to a cemetery at night, it's either to mess around or to destroy things, and especially in a town like I live in, it's generally for destructive purposes. So it could just be that spirit being protective of its home. It was supposed to be there and laid to rest, and something's happened to it. It actually used to house a coffin in there.
Okay.
But something had happened to it. It got vandalized, and they had to remove it and then bury them. So it could be that they're just a little protective of their area.
Possibly. Do you incorporate your beliefs into your paranormal when you go investigating? Do you incorporate any of your beliefs into that?
Absolutely. So my beliefs are basically incorporated into my day-to-day life. I more or less like just breathe my spirituality.
Okay. So I find I'm not an antagonist when it comes to locations. I don't antagonize or anything like that. I do make sure I do grounding, and I do intention work before I start, and then before I leave as well, I do intention work. So that's how I incorporate my belief into the work that I do. But yeah, I think we've gone over our hour that we said that we was gonna do.
Oops.
So no, it's been great fun. I just wanted to do a couple of shout outs if there's anything else you want to discuss. No? Okay. I just wanted to do a couple of shout outs before everyone goes. Obviously, we are Equilibrium Collective, and we are everything from paranormal to beyond that. We have a Facebook page. We would love it if you can go and give it a like. We're definitely new. We love to share. We love to share your work. We love to do all that kind of stuff. So please go over, give it a like, and if we see anything you've got up and coming, then we will post it on there as well. We're all about community. We are on Facebook, and we have a YouTube channel, which is super exciting. It's progression. Yeah. We'd also like to give a quick shout out to Living Paranormal magazine. Living Paranormal is the ones that done our graphic for us, so thank you very much. I write for Living Paranormal magazine as well, so the next edition is going to be the 17th of July, so look out for that. I'm currently finishing my article. They're on Facebook and Instagram. And then for a little bit of light-hearted fun that's a really spooky is Wayne Sneeden's Spookanori. So if you like fiction tales but you like a little bit of a scary factor to it, please go over and have a look. This man has the most deepest voice you've ever heard in your life. So that's a frequency that's going to put the fear in you, definitely. So go over there and give him a like as well, and join his Facebook page. So so if you want to be advertised on our next show, which will be Thursday, please drop us your links and a little bit of information on what you do. We'll be happy to do that, including any podcasts that you do or any information you've got coming up. So I want to say thank you so much to my co-host Sarah for joining me, and thank you so much as well, David, for joining us this evening. So say good night. Good night, everyone.
Bye. Next time.
Bye.